Hi, it's Dwyer. Fight day, post-fight video, February 22nd, 2025. GamblersAdvisory.com, a free site. BettingAngle.us, a free site. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Had some hits, had some misses on this huge card from Saudi Arabia. The biggest hit for me personally was Callum Smith. That was simply an odds play. The odds were giving him less than a 40% chance of winning a fight against front foot heavy Joshua Buatsi. The hedge on that fight was that the fight wouldn't go the distance. So I needed Callum Smith to win if it went the distance, and he delivered. Right? We'll talk about that fight in a different video, but let's talk about a fight that stunned me. I was totally wrong. On this fight, I believe on a card with some great performances, right? Joe Parker, for example. Dimitri Bivol, for example. I thought the Agit Kabayel victory over Zhilei Zhang was simply stunning. Right? Understand, Kabayel is now the mandatory for Usyk. Kabayel, who, going into this fight, I viewed as a mover, right, is on a KO streak. He's actually a closer. Stops Makhmudov. Stops Frank Sanchez. Now he has stopped Zhilei Zhang. If you're going to watch one fight, now granted, the historical fight is the unification rematch at light heavy, right? It's Beterbiev Bivol. But if you're just into action, if you're researching styles, and if you want to see a guy show you a part of his game that, quite frankly, is shocking, this is the fight. First round, understand, Zhilei Zhang, southpaw, just like Usyk. Heavy puncher. I deliberately chose this background for this video because, in my opinion, Zhang is the best American heavyweight right now. Right? The guy has Sean George as his trainer. Sean George from Brooklyn. Right? He lives in New Jersey. Now, he comes out and the first round went the way you thought the fight was going to go. Kabayel comes out and he's moving. He's changing direction. He's outside. He's trying to beat Zhang from the outside in. Right? He sets it up where he's moving. The goal is, Zhang throws a punch, misses. Kabayel is going to jump inside and he's going to do some work. Right? That's what I mean by outside in, as opposed to inside out, where a guy is inside, he's roughing you up in the pocket, then he takes a step outside of the pocket. Right? Well, just understand, the first round, Zhang wins the first round. Zhang shows hand speed. Zhang actually shows volume. The first round makes the fight look like a done deal. There's a size gap between the two. Zhang is landing some very good straight punches. Right? Kabayel seems a little bit lost. Then we get to the second round. Now, there's a moment in the first round that deserves your attention. Right? You're looking at Agit Kabayel. He has a certain persona. He looks like a very clean-cut guy. But against Zhilei Zhang, one of the biggest punchers in the heavyweight division, there is a moment in the first round where, believe it or not, Kabayel, in a round he's losing, places Zhang in a headlock. Doesn't let go right away. Zhang actually taps him, MMA style, as if to say, player, what are you doing? Right? Understand, Kabayel is someone else, right? At least he's someone else to me. I thought he was the finesse fighter in this fight. Folks, he comes out in the second round And this isn't an episodic thing. This is actually the whole round. He comes out in the second round against Zhilei Zhang, and he's on his front foot. Now, this is an important moment for the heavyweight division, right? Because just understand, I believe the way to beat Usyk is to be on your front foot. In other words, Derek Chisora, I thought, is on his front foot against Usyk, giving him problems. Maris Briedis is on his front foot, giving Usyk problems. Right? I don't think you can hover. I don't think you can move around outside. I think against Usyk, you need to be on your front foot. Well, what we learned in this fight, and it's the biggest lesson from the card, because understand, Callum Smith, he's inside, Buatsi's inside. Well, that's part of their brand, right? You know, Joe Parker lands a big overhand right, but Joe Parker threw a lot of overhand rights against Joe Joyce, right? That's part of his brand. Beterbiev, front foot, heavy front foot, particularly in the mid-rounds, 4, 5, and 6. Bivol, of course, is back foot, making you miss, showing stamina in rounds 9, 10, 11. Right? Those guys were on brand. In other words, you were watching the card, and you thought, you know what, this is what I expected. Shakur Stevenson, lightning fast hands. He's fighting a replacement. I didn't make a pre-fight video on that fight because the odds were too skewed, right? But just understand, Shakur Stevenson showed you again that he has lightning fast hands, great counters. When he's fighting an overmatched opponent, he can stop the opponent, right? I'm just telling you, of all the fights on the card, this is the fight where Agit Kabayel goes off-brand. In other words, he has a skill set here. And this is the highest risk fight of the night, right? Because, folks, he loses the first round on his back foot. He gets in the pocket against Zhilei Zhang, and he then starts dominating Zhang. Right? He wins the second round on his front foot, and he's trading with Zhang. Now, just understand, Zhang can throw straight punches. He can hit you with short shots. Here's a smaller man. In fact, on the telecast, one of the guys is actually saying, oh, Kabayel needs to get lower. Right? Kabayel is in the pocket. Picture this. He's using both hands to throw body shots in a sustained manner. Occasionally, he picks up a right hand and throws a straight right hand right down Main Street. But understand, he's right in front of Zhilei Zhang. I did not think this was possible. Right? The only hedge I had on Kabayel was Kabayel by decision. I thought there was no way he was going to knock out Zhilei Zhang. Right? Zhang, who had stamina problems against Jerry Forrest, went the distance against Ergovic. Right? Zhang, is a guy who went the distance against Joe Parker. Right, folks? Believe it or not, Kabayel takes apart Zhang's body, staying in the pocket in a way he didn't do against Makhmudov. In Makhmudov, that fight, where Kabayel takes away Makhmudov's body. But understand, Kabayel is outside, jumps inside, throws body shots, bounces back outside. Folks, the second, third, and fourth rounds here, I'm just telling you, Kabayel spends more time deep in the pocket against Zhilei Zhang than anywhere else. And what I couldn't understand was that Kabayel is throwing rights to the body. Zhilei Zhang, knockout puncher, southpaw. I was shocked that Kabayel's body shots, and it doesn't even look like he's leaning into them. This isn't Canelo left hook, where Canelo looks like he's jumping into you. No, this is a guy who has a foundation under him. And it looks like he's throwing arm punches. But the shocker here is that he's throwing right hands to Zhang's body as part of his two-handed attack. And Zhang cannot time a left hand to come over it. So believe it or not, Kabayel wins the second round. He wins the third round. He wins the fourth round. Folks, he's dominating the fifth round when Zhang finally lands a home run shot. Kabayel hits the canvas. You think the fight has turned. Zhang is energized, right? But understand, before that shot, Zhang's losing the fifth round. Understand what happens next. Kabayel gets off the canvas. By the time you get to the end of the fifth round, Kabayel is all the way back in the fight. In fact, on my scorecard, that fifth round with the Kabayel knockdown, Kabayel hitting the canvas, is actually not a 10-8 round. For Zhang, it's a 10-9 round. Right, folks, I did not think there was a heavyweight, any heavyweight, who could stand in front of Zhang. Let's remember, he stops Joe Joyce twice. He knocks down Ergovic. He knocks down Joe Parker twice. Right, Parker wins the fight with a lot of lateral movement. Kabayel is right in front of Zhang. So then we get to the sixth round. Now, if you haven't seen the fight, you need to understand that there is a moment in the sixth round, and understand by this point, Kabayel's dominating. In other words, I thought Zhang would go the distance. Folks, the fight's over before the fight's over here. So, in the sixth round, Kabayel lands a wicked body shot. The action stops momentarily. Folks, that's not the knockdown. This is before the knockdown. Kabayel hits him. There's some confusion. Zhang doubles over. So then you get later in the round, the knockdown. And what I want people to do is to look at Zhang on the canvas. The ref is counting. The ref gives him a full opportunity, right? The ref's counting in front of him. Then the ref waves off the fight. Zhang tries to get up. At least this is what fighters do, right? He tries to get up, or at least look like he's getting up. The referee waves off the fight. Zhang doesn't dispute it. In fact, he turns his back to Kabayel. It's clear Zhang's done. Right? There's, the fight's properly ended. Let me tell you, there's no way. If the ref allowed Zhang to get up, there's no way Zhang would have made it to the eighth round. Right now, the reason I'm throwing this out, besides the fact that I lost both halves of this bet, right? Sadly, I also lost both halves of the Hamza Shiraz Carlos Adames bet. That was a downer. Draws are terrible for gamblers, right? I had Shiraz in that fight. I believe the hedge was Adonis by KO, right? Let me just say this. This is the surprise of the night, right? I'm just telling you that I'll look at more film, but Agit Kabayel, I'm assuming, is going to be at least a plus 150 against Alexander Usyk. And he's going to be the betting side of the play. Right? This guy has the legs to travel with Usyk. More importantly, he has the rough and tumble game. This is a guy who's putting his forearm up on Zhang's neck. Right? I told you about the headlock. You look at him and you understand, whatever the persona, however clean the interview, whatever the image, this guy can get in the trenches and he can get dirty. Right? And I'm just telling you, and I haven't quite figured out what the deal is. I don't understand how a guy can come in and have a two-handed body attack and have Makhmudov, who's a knockout puncher, and have Zhang, who's a knockout puncher, and Zhang's a shorter puncher than Makhmudov. Completely baffled on what to do. Right, folks? Zhang is systematically destructed here. Right? I still view Zhang as extremely dangerous. But if I'm the Zhang people, there's no way I ever fight Kabayel again. This was a destruction. I don't think Daniel Dubois could stand in front of Zhang the way this guy did. Let me put this diplomatically too. I've seen some great body punchers in my life, right? Mike, the body snatcher McCallum, right? We've all seen body punchers. Canelo can take you out to the body, right? This guy is one of the best body punchers in the entire sport. This is a body punch fest, right? This is a guy who figured out the path to success after a first round in which he lost on his back foot. Maybe this was always the game plan, was to get in the pocket and throw body shots with both hands against Zhang. Sounds preposterous. Folks, understand, the fight's not that close. I know people are going to say, well, Zhang won the first round. The fifth round is 10-8, right? Don't be fooled. Zhang loses the second round, the third round, the fourth round. He stopped in the sixth round. Right? Even the fifth round, I would say, is a 10-9 round. The revelation of this card, and I understand there were big wins, right? Callum Smith righted his career. Right? Dimitri Bivol, in a fight between Hall of Famers, got revenge on his one loss. Right? He, again, goes the distance with Beterbiev only one man has. Him. Right? There's some great performances here, right? And Joe Parker, we're going to figure out that Parker's on a spectacular run. Right? Zhang, Deontay Wilder, Martin Bakole. Right, folks? The card here, the big news is the guy who goes off-brand. Right? Kabayel inside is a problem. If he gets inside, big if, on Alexander Usyk, and understand, this guy has legs. He can move with Usyk. If he gets inside on Alexander Usyk, he probably has more going on inside, believe it or not, than Derek Chisora. Right? Let me just say, too, Chisora's a bigger puncher. Chisora has a sneaky straight right hand inside. I'll concede that. But let's just say this guy seems to know the sequencing to the point where he can just start throwing both hands to the body and have his head inside in such a way. And he's figured out the angles. This is an angles guy. Where he knew somehow that Zhang could not hit him with a straight left. Right? I'm still perplexed by it. You know, there's some bets you lose and you say, oh, come on. What are the judges thinking? Right? I personally feel Hamza Shiraz took Carlos Adames' title. Right? Lost my money on that fight. I'm sore and bitter about it. Think I was robbed. Right? But then there are the bets you lose where you think to yourself, man, I did not see this. You're watching the fight and you say, man, I was wrong about this fight. Folks, I realized that in the second round here. Let me know your thoughts. You know, Europe right now is ground zero for boxing. Right? Daniel Dubois has a share of the heavyweight title. Some of the major contenders are British. Right? Just understand, guys from other places in the world. Joe Parker, right? He's hanging out with Andy Lee. Where? In the United Kingdom. Right? Martin Bakole is, you know, the King of Scotland. right? You know, understand that Kabayel, like Zhilei Zhang, right? Zhang's American, Chinese. Kabayel, who talked about Kurdish power indeed, is from Germany. This guy could upset the apple cart. The second round is a jaw dropper, right? You know, the second round started and I'm looking at it and Kabayel comes out on his front foot and I just thought to myself, great. You know, if you're on the Zhilei Zhang side of the play, right, and I needed, if there was going to be a knockout in the fight, Zhilei Zhang to get it, right, just from a betting perspective. I thought, wow, some guy thinks it's a good idea to be on his front foot against Zhilei Zhang. Folks, Zhilei Zhang starts backing up. Then you start realizing this guy Kabayel actually has not just an inside game, he's advanced inside. Right? He's advanced inside. And he has the timing down where he's taking big risks. Right? You know, I'm just wondering if he could pull this off against, let's say, an Anthony Joshua. I don't know. Right? Because I'm still in shock. I don't know how he pulled it off against Zhilei Zhang. Right? You're seeing him inside against a big puncher. And you're just waiting for the big guy to be able to get off some shots. And then you start to realize, oh no, this is the way the fight's going. Right, folks, I'm not kidding. He's throwing combinations to Zhilei Zhang's body. And you're waiting for the counter. Understand, Zhilei Zhang, to me, is a shorter puncher than Joe Joyce. Right? This is a guy who, you know, at times looks like Inoue. In other words, you know, can throw the punch 6 inches and take you out. And I was just astonished that a guy who knocked down Joe Parker twice couldn't counter what Kabayel's doing. Let me also say, too, the end of this fight's like the Frank Sanchez fight, where you're looking at Sanchez and you're thinking to yourself, it couldn't be this easy to beat Frank Sanchez. Right? Understand, in that fight, you're wondering what's wrong with Frank. Right? Frank gets his body taken away to the point where he couldn't get away from Kabayel. So, you know, it's my belief that when you watch a guy and you don't know how the guy's doing it, that's a guy to keep an eye on. Understand, if things go according to ranking, this is Usyk's next match. Right now, Usyk has a lot more stamina than Zhilei Zhang, right? Usyk has spectacular stamina, even in his late 30s. That's one of his calling cards. Right? Is he going to have that stamina after getting hit in the body the amount of times that Kabayel can hit him? Let me also point out, too, something that might sound ridiculous. I personally feel that Zhilei Zhang's straight left is shorter than Usyk's straight left. Right? And just understand, Zhilei Zhang, who has more hand speed than you think. You can complain about him being lower volume, but he has more hand speed. Right? Just understand, I'm not sure, since Zhang couldn't land his straight left, I'm not sure what Usyk's going to do. Kabayel is that much of a wild card to me. Right? This is the fight that shocked me the most on the card. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section of this YouTube video. Thanks for stopping by.